Hello. We're just going to wait a little bit to get started. I'm just waiting till this has gone live for everybody. Hi everyone. I'm sorry for the delay. I think we had a mix-up in the schedule because our schedule said we were going to start around 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Times. So I apologize for that delay. So without further ado, I think we will get started. My name is Zahra Husain. I am a senior at UPenn. I am studying international relations, and this will be my first time coming to India, so I'm very excited about that. So today I think we're going to be discussing unmoderated caucuses and how to best prepare for those in ILMUNC India. So I guess to start off with a little background, I've been doing Model UN since I was in the 7th grade, so I've had a fair amount of experience doing that. And I think one thing that a lot of my peers have struggled with is the unmoderated caucus and how important that can be in being a successful delegate, because obviously in committee it's important to be well spoken and present your ideas and make sure that you are heard. But I think that's only half the battle. In the rest of committee, you have time outside to just work with other delegates, to flesh out your ideas, to really come up with good solutions that will be the basis for what you discuss in committee and what you debate. So let me see, do you guys have any questions? I guess one thing that I think is really important is that you really focus on ideas that you discuss in committee, and then when you go to Unmod, you have a sense of which other delegates you align with and which other delegates you think share similar views and ideas that you could merge and present a good working paper. I think one thing to keep in mind is that formatting and language is very important at the ILMUNC India conference. It's important to know how to use preambulatory clauses, to use operative clauses, and to format it properly. But I think one of the most important things is the substantial part of the working papers, and that's what really the unmoderated caucus is for. It's really important to be able to work with a variety of delegates. People have very different styles, and in Unmod, that's a good chance for people to really showcase that, because you're free, you're out of committee room. So for those of you who haven't done this before, you're able to leave committee room and work outside or around the room in a debate free setting. So that would be a time when the chair would just give you moments to group together and discuss the issues of the committee in a more informal way. So I'm just going to check and see if you have any questions now. Okay, so a particular issue that came up last year for me was in DISEC. I was a delegate of talent, and the committee could hardly do anything. So can you elaborate for me a little bit? That's a great question. Were you not were you not given time to draft those, or was it just the flow of committee that prevented you from drafting resolutions or getting signatories? Well, I recognize that the committees are really big. As a delegate who has competed in a variety of different committees, sometimes it can even be, several hundred people in a committee. I think what's important is that's really on the chair, and that's something that I know that all of us are very dedicated to, is really moving the flow of debate. So I think the way that unmoderated caucuses are most successful is to start off debate at the beginning of the conference with a speakers list, and then move into moderated caucuses, and give a chance for more people to speak that way, because I think it's a lot easier to get more people to speak through unmods, because you can call on them one by one instead of going back to the speakers list. So I think if we're able to do that this year, I think that would really put us in a good position, every 45 minutes or so to call an unmoderated caucus and to allow delegates to, regroup and find those who they think their ideas would work well with. For me, I think it's important when I am in committee, I'm really listening to the other delegates and hearing their ideas and making notes. So it's, for me, I often send a note to a delegate that I think would have the potential to work well with me, and definitely go seek them out when I'm given the chance in Unmod. So I'm hearing that people would go and yell and not let any work happen. So I think that's an important thing to address. So I think working in an Unmod is a great opportunity to get to talk to delegates in a less formal setting. So you don't have to necessarily follow all the protocols and the procedure of parliamentary debate that we use in committee, but I think yelling and shouting at each other is exactly one thing that we need to address here, that's not proper, and that's something that would be be frowned upon by the chairs of ILMUNC India, because what I'm hoping that you gain from this session is just an understanding that it's important to be assertive and to voice your ideas both in committee and out of committee. I think the most successful delegates and unmods are those who can sit down with other delegates, can hear their ideas, can bounce their own ideas off others, and say, okay, well, look, this is where we can compromise, this is where we can work together, this is where we're on the same page. And I think one of the most easy way to look at that is to think it's kind of like a mediation in a legal case, right? Like, shouting at other people is going to be unproductive, and it's going to be worse for both of you because you will be able to show nothing at the end of it. If you're able to level with each other and look at what your ideas are and discuss them, in a calm, in an articulate way, the way you would in committee, I think that would really benefit both of you. And I think that's one thing, if you guys have more questions about, I can answer. So, okay. So here it says, so coming to the ultimate question, is it better in committee to be a power delegate or just a nice person to everyone and cooperate? I would say that there's no real answer to that question. It's not a sense of power delegates or someone who is cooperative. I think it's important to be articulate when you speak in committee. I think it's important to know what you're going to say and to have done your research and be prepared, and to listen to other delegates and respond to other delegates. I think it's really valuable when delegates actually listen and build off each other in committee. Outside of committee, I think it's important, again, to be assertive, to talk articulatively, but also to be cooperative. I don't think that it should be one or the other. I think it should be both. And I think that's what makes it challenging, and that's what makes it something that we should discuss. But that is, really the way to succeed in a committee. So in crisis committee, it works a little bit differently. Crisis committees are, what they basically do is they have directives. So as live updates are happening, you're being given more and more crises, you respond right away through directives. So individual delegates can propose directives, and then afterwards you are able to vote on them. So a lot of times they'll get passed, but a lot of times, that's something you have to vote on each time, and it's more like a one-sentence thing or a few-sentence thing. And then the other part of crisis is the crisis notes. So you send notes to the crisis staff, and they work with you on your crises and stuff. Just to go back. Yes, I apologize for the delay. We did have a difference in schedule. We did think it was going to start an hour later than you guys did. And yes, I know that Carmen and Risha will both have webinars later on, so you're more than welcome to ask them, and I think that would be a really good way to do that. In terms of position papers for each topic, yes, we do typically ask for position paper for each topic. It doesn't have to be very long. It could just be a one-page paper. It can be slightly longer if you choose, but that's up to you. It's really just a background on your position. It's a good way for you to think about what you think is important, but it's not necessarily needs to be a long essay for a school or anything like that. Risha is another chair for this conference, and so she works as a crisis Undersecretary General for one of our conferences here in Philadelphia. So she has a lot of experience with crisis, and she'd be happy to answer any questions about that. Does anyone have any further questions about crisis? Sorry, not about crisis, about Unmoderated Caucus. I think, one thing that I really emphasize is I think a lot of times people focus on just writing things out and thinking that that's the most important part about Unmod, is being the one who's writing things out or, dictating to other people. But I think what's really important is that you really discuss ideas and really come up with solutions that maybe it's, easier to explain things one-on-one to someone in an unmoderated caucus. So we have a question here that says, can we draft conventions and recommendations like in a traditional ILO setting? So yes, what you can do is, the way we run it is that you will have a guide of proper clauses, like preambulatory clauses and operative clauses, and there's a particular format that the resolutions will have to be in at the end. But basically, yes, you're allowed to give recommendations, you're allowed to draft conventions, especially, I think we're going to emphasize the recommendations because that's the way we typically do it in ILMUNC conferences. So you will be able, in your delegate folders, you will get an entire sheet with all the language. So that should be your starting point. Okay, so we have a couple more questions. One for what is an unmoderated caucus? So basically what that is when in committee, there's obviously, we usually start off with a speakers list, so everyone raises their hand who would like to speak, and we put them on a list, and we go down the list one by one until there's a motion for a different type of debate. So then usually that ends up being moderated caucuses, where we give 10 minutes, 30-second speaking time, and then one by one you raise your placards and we'll call on you. And then in unmoderated caucus, it's basically when everyone is free to move around the room or walk outside the room and discuss the issues of committee or work on draft resolutions together. But that's basically how unmoderated caucuses work. Okay, I'm sorry to be a delay on all your questions, but the next question is, I didn't get my character, so how can I research? So I would email the info@ilmuncindia.com email address if you are confused about your position. I think there may be, for some, if you're in a crisis committee, there are some committees where you are given your position very late or when you arrive, and it's more that you're just supposed to research the general topic. But if you are in a GA committee, it should be a country that you are assigned to, and you should have gotten that, or you should be getting that soon. So another question is, at one of my previous conferences, I lent my pen drive to a delegate for copying a working paper. However, they copied all of my backup research as well. In such a case, is it best to handle it ourselves or bring it to the attention of the executive board? I would definitely bring it to the attention of your chair. Your chair is responsible for making sure the committee runs smoothly and fairly. So I think that would be the best first step, and then from there, your chair will, investigate and take the appropriate measures and discuss with the Secretary General and the Director General and make sure that nothing like that happens again. So, yes, I do believe that your questions may not be getting through. Anonymous 2861938. Is the webinar happening today? Yes, it is happening right now. And then, can we use electronic devices for referencing? So no, you can use. So I'm not sure if they're continuing this policy, but typically you can use you can use your computers to type up draft resolutions and working papers in Unmods, but you can't be on the internet and be doing research because you're supposed to have done all your research before you come to ILMUNC India. Yeah, basically the point of that is that we want you to be prepared and engaged in committee, and like I've been saying, that really the purpose of Unmod is to discuss with other delegates and not to be on your computer doing research for Unmod or for moderated caucuses. So yes, do you talk during a moderated caucus? Yes. So the way the moderated caucus works is someone will motion for the moderated caucus and then tell us the purpose of the moderated caucus and then discuss why, and then give us a speaking time and how long the moderated caucus will be. So that will be something like, I motion for a 10-minute moderated caucus with a 30-second speaking time to discuss the water crisis. And then, people, all of those will vote for it, and then anyone who would like to speak will raise their placard, and we will call on them one-on-one. If you're referring to, do we talk during an unmoderated caucus? Yes, you talk to each other, but you don't, you're not in committee. So the dais, the chairs, the chair and the dais won't be, they won't be, they won't be, moderating you. They'll just be walking around and watching you and seeing what you're doing and if you're discussing well. But basically the purpose of the Unmod is for you to interact with other delegates and not to just be presenting to the committee. So it's really about you working with other delegates in an informal setting and really honing in on those draft resolutions. And typically, in my experience, it's good to have them about every 30 to 45 minutes, something like 10, 15 minutes of time after the first session. But I think it's really important that you guys really take advantage of those, but also realize that they're really for a purpose and to actually really do work. But it's not a time for you to take a break from committee. It's more a change in pace of committee. Okay, let's see. So I think there's some confusion. The broadcast should be live, and I am watching it, so I do think it is live right now. But if you guys are having trouble accessing it, I know the site was acting up a little bit earlier today, so you may want to just try refreshing the page, and we'll be able to get you back on the stream. So DISEC is a GA committee, and so for that, you can use your laptop to draft resolutions, but not to be doing research and using the internet in Unmods. In committee, there's no electronics allowed. So if we're just for a moderated caucus, just okay. So here's a question: what do we present during moderated caucus? So that's a great question. So at the beginning of the debate, usually about the first session, moderated caucuses are just a great way for you guys to share your ideas and your positions and really get acquainted with who stands on what side of each issue. After we've had unmoderated caucuses and you guys have had a chance to be working on draft resolutions, then it's really important that you come back to committee and share those ideas so people can, one, hear and learn about your paper, but also especially because some of you guys have noted, there are a lot of delegates in these committees, and a great way to be successful in passing stuff is to start merging. So in moderated caucus is a great way to announce your ideas and to really hear others and see where the overlap is, because typically what we'll do is have moderated caucuses to discuss what you worked on in unmoderated caucuses, but then we'll send you back out to more unmoderated caucuses in order to really merge your papers and work together. So the next question is, which is important, a working paper or a resolution? Okay, so they're very connected. They're very connected. I'm sorry, there's just a slight issue. Oh, I'm sorry, I think I might have gotten disconnected for 1 second. Okay, sorry. We just had a little bit of a disconnect issue, but I am back. So, which is more important, a working paper or a draft resolution? Those are connected, and both are very important. So the first step is a working paper. So when you first start going to unmoderated caucuses, what you'll do is work with other delegates to just write out your ideas. And these can end up being a little bit on the long side, but basically, what are your recommendations on the issue? What is your position on the issue? And then what, you think we need to, as a committee, address on these issues. What we do after that is we come back to moderated caucus and we discuss these issues and these ideas as a committee, and then we try and merge you because there are often a lot of overlapping ideas or a lot of ideas that would work as one great solution. And then what we do is we present draft resolutions and we vote on those. And then those are the ones we actually vote on, and those will typically come at the sometime on the Saturday of committee. And when you get those resolutions, that's what the actual deliverable of the committee is. That this is the thing that we came together and suggested and took action on. So I would say both are important. I think working papers are the first step and draft resolutions are the second step. So I would think about it as that. I would think about it as a process, not one thing and another thing. Okay, next question. Ma'am, how often does the speaker's list take place in committee? I would say they're about once, maybe twice in the committee. Usually just the first session at the very beginning, we open with the speaker's list, and then afterwards we move into pretty much just moderated and unmoderated caucuses, and then voting procedure when it's time to vote on draft resolutions. I would say that it's not typical for us to be using the speaker's list very often. I think it tends to slow down debate a little bit, and I think that it's preferable for people in moderated caucuses because you get to respond directly. If someone makes a statement, you can raise your placard right away and discuss. In a speaker's list setting, you have to wait until it's your turn. So someone may have said something that you could respond very well to, but you may be 6 people down the list. And so by the time it gets to you, you may not, really make sense for you to say that anymore. The debate may have moved in a different direction. So I think most chairs would say moderated caucuses are more beneficial. So next question, do we have to present the summary of a position paper? So technically you don't. The position paper is a really good exercise for you to be familiarized with your positions and the issues relating to your country. But I don't think that it's necessary to come to committee and present the paper. I think really it's like a background resource for you. It's a good way to start and organize your research. But in terms of presenting, I think especially the first time you speak, it's important to outline your position as a country and your goals for the committee in terms of what you would like to see happen. But I wouldn't say that you should come into committee and present it. So next question is, according to the ILO website, there are 28 representatives, 14 employer representatives, and 14 workers representatives in the committee. Would it be like that in committee? So I would say yes. So basically, the way an ILO is structured is really to emulate the real ILO. So there will be representatives from all of the countries and all the representatives that embody the ILO. So I'm not sure if you guys have all gotten your positions or some of you are missing your positions, but it should be very similar to the real ILO. Often, depending on numbers of a modeling committee, there's slightly different allocations of which delegates we choose to assign to, but typically, yes, it should reflect the real ILO. And you're welcome. I'm happy to answer questions. Can we bring papers from outside for reference? So yeah, you can bring research. I know that when I was in high school, a lot of people did bring their research with them and had that. The thing is, you can't have it electronically. You can't be on your laptop in committee, even if you're not on the internet. If you want to have your background research with you, you should have it printed out and bring it with you. The only time you will be able to use computers once conference starts is during unmoderated caucuses to type up your working paper. Okay. But yeah, you're more than welcome to have outside research. That's I actually think it's helpful sometimes. I think that once debate really starts, though, you probably won't be spending a lot of time going back and reading it. I think it's really great to familiarize yourself. And for me, I think it's beneficial when I write out the position paper, because then I get a real sense of all my research and why it's important. Okay, next question. Do we have social events at ILMUNC, like social nights, etc.? Yeah, they do have a social, like, delegate fest. I believe it's going to be on the Saturday of committee, so I'm sure that's going to be a lot of fun, and so that's definitely something to look forward to and come to. Yeah, so there'll be different types of social. So someone just said there were 3 social nights last year. There'll probably be 3 this time too. So yeah, the way we usually run our conference is that we have different types of social events every night. So it can be like, games or performances or, a delegate dance. So it's, different things every night, and that schedule will be released to you later on. So you'll be able to see all the events and plan for those. So that'll be really fun. And the next question, do we need to get working papers before the start of conference? No. So that's actually something that's a good thing to address. That's something that's actually not allowed. We don't allow you to come to conference with pre-written draft resolutions or pre-written working papers. Really, the only thing that you should come with is your position paper, background research, and ideas of what you want to discuss in the debate. And then once the debate starts, you really work with what's discussed in committee to come up with your ideas and to write out your clauses. It's actually something that you aren't allowed to do. Like when you come to ILMUNC India, we don't allow pre-written resolutions. That's actually something that can be a detriment to committee. So can we ask our chairs out for a dance? That's very sweet of you. I think the entire secretariat will be at the dance, but when we will be happy to see you in and out of committee. That will be nice. I think we'll be at all the social events, so you'll get to see plenty of us. Okay, so what does a working paper consist of? So a working paper consists of mainly preambulatory clauses, which basically are a statement of the positions and the issues of the delegates in the committee. So basically, if I'm writing a position paper, I'm writing a working paper, and I have 4 ideas about what I want to say, I would start off by outlining, like, this is the issue, this is a statement of the issue, this is why it's a problem, and then going from there, I would have the operative clauses. So I would say, these are the actions I think we should take, and these are what I think is super important that we as a committee vote to take action towards. So if it's something like child labor, like new, international standards, or, providing aid to certain countries where it's a big problem. So those are really the things that I would work on. So next question, is the working draft paper gets done during the course of the committee? Yes, so completely done during conference. So the only thing that I would worry about is coming to committee prepared to debate. So basically what you would do is in Unmoderated Caucus, you get together in groups. So if I find 3 other delegates who I think have similar positions, what I would do is, find them in Unmoderated, send them a note during Moderated Caucus and say, hey, like, let's discuss more. I think we have a lot in common. Or, like, this idea that you said is something that I also thought because, in my position, I researched, I found this. And then when you get together outside of committee, what you'll really want to do is flesh out those ideas and see, what you both think, and hopefully there's a lot of agreement, and if there's not, maybe there's ways for you to work together and combine your ideas. But this all happens during committee, so I wouldn't worry about it beforehand. I would just worry about once you get there to really listen to other people's ideas and work with them when you go to draft resolutions. Okay, is the working, yeah, okay, so next question. Which will eventually bubble up for the final paper post on all the deadings? So basically, I would say what happens is the draft resolutions we usually vote on, and typically chairs do limit the number. It's not like infinite number. Not every delegate is like going to submit one, and there's like 200 of them. We try and have you merge in your groups so that you can, debate more and get and compromise more, and then vote on actual real resolutions. So that would be the goal. So any tips on writing a position paper from your point of view? I think the most successful position papers have an element of a historical background. So you start off by discussing a little bit about your country, its history, particularly pertaining to the issue. So if it's an issue of water scarcity or something, how is that going to relate? How has that been a problem over time? Or is there any current actions that are going to help mitigate that? And then I would say really focusing on the issue and just looking at previous ILO or previous DISEC resolutions, and then looking at how you can build on those and how those are the standard we have so far. But really, I think it does two things. Like, one, that it does provide history and context, and it also, two, looks critically at the country's positions and because that will help prepare you for when other delegates have different positions or similar positions. You know what your country needs and wants, or whatever you're representing needs or wants, and then you're able to fight for that. So, is it fine if we create a group on social media platform to connect with each other before the conference? I believe that's fine. If you are concerned that may not be fine, I would email the Secretary General. But I think it would be great for you to be connected. I think that debate and stuff is only going to be starting once the conference starts. But if you just want to connect with each other, I think that's great. I know that in high school, I made friends with a lot of people I went to conference with, and I'm still in touch with them. So that's something really, afterwards definitely is great. And beforehand, that's something that maybe you'd want to ask the Secretary General about. So the next question, is it necessary to speak in each session? It's not necessary, I guess, but I think it's really important if you want to, make sure that your ideas are heard, and that, that other delegates who may share similar views actually know, that you do. I wouldn't say it's a problem if you don't speak. I think a big part of Model UN, though, is speaking. I know that, as much as I'm focusing on UNMODs today, it's really important to focus on every part of the committee, and I think the most successful delegates are those who talk in committee. It doesn't mean that you have to be the one who talks the absolute most. It doesn't necessarily mean that's the best thing. I think when you raise your placard that you should have substantial, important, relevant things to say, but it doesn't mean that you have to speak every second, every single moderated caucus. And in fact, we try and make sure that we get as many people as possible to speak. So the next question is, as you say, it's best to research about the topic, collect our findings on the research, and propose and combine it during committee. Yeah, so I would say really before committee, the one thing you need to do is just be really well versed on your position and the issues. So a good place to start would be the background guide, and then afterwards you would just continue in committee and discuss those issues. So yes, but the one thing that I want to emphasize is that you shouldn't come with preconceived ideas and written out resolutions or potential resolutions, because that's not allowed. So next question. So how do you know beforehand who all are part of our group topic? You know what? I really don't think you do know. I think that it's really, you're given your position and your committee, and then you're able to, if you know other people going to the conference, you can ask them like, oh, like what committee are you in? But I don't think there's really a way for you to check who all is in the committee at any given time. Okay, next question. Should we concentrate on our country's history and how it is related to the topic, or is it better to research the topic alone? I would say a little bit of both, unfortunately. I know that's a little bit frustrating. It's easy to say like one or the other, but I think history is important for yourself to just know why the issue would be important to your country, and I think that's something more personal and that maybe doesn't need to take as much time. In terms of understanding the issue, I think that's very subjective. As much research as you need to do to really understand the topic and to explain your positions in committee, to develop positions before. And that's one thing you do need to know before you come in, is like, where do I stand on this issue? So I think both are very important. I think it's also important to look at the current situation of in your own country, because that's going to influence your policy positions. So when does this session end? Yeah, so this session will probably end at 10 o'clock. So if you have more questions, I'm more than happy to answer them. Oh, okay, next question. There are no dynamic background guides for the child labor agenda. Actually, there should be dynamic background guides for every committee at ILMUNC India. I know that we were working on that last week, and they should be up pretty soon. I would just keep checking the website because I know that that's something that our chief of ops has been working on. So next question, do we have to write the resolution on the basis of the problem given by our committee? Yes, so this is the way it works. In the background guide, there's 2 issues and that are written about in the background guide. So basically what we, as the dais, are looking for is that you understand these issues and you come in, you debate them, and then for each topic, we'll go one by one on each topic. So the first topic, we'll pick which topic we want to discuss, and you guys will discuss it and come up with some resolutions on that topic. It's important that we do stay on topic in committee, and I think one thing that was brought up earlier in this webinar was that last year some delegates had the experience where the committees were so big and people were shouting at each other in unmoderated caucus and it was unproductive. So really making sure we stay on topic in both in committee, in moderated caucuses, and outside of committee and unmods when we're discussing potential resolutions. It's really important to really stay on task. Okay, next question. Who all are part of my committee? And can we create a query? Okay, yeah, so the one delegate is asking about who's in his committee or her committee, and so that's something you guys can coordinate. I don't really have any way of helping you guys connect, unfortunately, but I am really looking forward to working with all of you in a couple weeks, or actually, yeah, I think it's just under 2 weeks now, so that's really exciting for all of us. I guess going back to, do you need to focus on the topics given by the committee? I think one thing to remember is that the background guide is a springboard for you in your research. And so if you're concerned, that maybe the topics given by committee, maybe you have something else that you would want to expand on, if that's part of your research, you can bring in your own research and relate things to the issue. But the basis is that the issues we give you are the ones that we're discussing and are the ones that we're working to solve. Okay, next question. Do we write the resolution between the sessions? Technically, you can do that. That's up to you. If you want to take time between sessions to work on and to discuss with other delegates. But basically, the way I envision my committee and the way I think most chairs would prefer is that when we give you time in unmoderated caucuses, that you really use that time to work together and write out the resolutions and bring those to us, and then we can present those and vote on those and discuss those. So next question, on the drugs topic, do we debate both the A and B committees? So basically I would say that when the committee starts, we're gonna debate which issue we want to discuss first. So in any given committee, I think there will be 2 issues, at least for GAs and ECOSOC committees. And so, part of the first session will be a debate on which issue we think we need to talk about first and which maybe we find more pressing. Okay, next question. Are chits allowed to be passed during moderated caucus? Yeah. So far, we do allow that. Unfortunately, if it becomes disruptive to the flow of committee, we will have to suspend note passing, but you will be allowed to do that. Okay, next question. The dynamic background guide for the ILO agenda are up, but not for the child labor agenda. So is the child labor committee, if some committees may be up already and some may not be, so I would just wait a few more days and they should all be up, but I don't think that there's I know that there will be one for every committee. So next question, is it that we just go ahead with either topic A or B? So no, we actually, the way we start debate is we open the speakers list, right? But the first thing we discuss is which topic, because the committee has to set the agenda. It's not that the chair can just say we're going to discuss this. That's not how the procedure works. So we'll have delegates come up and speak for either topic, and so that really is literally just saying, I think this topic is important for this reason, and so we should discuss it first. And then there's a debate for a little bit. I try and do that as fast as possible because I don't think it's very substantial or substantive. I think it's more important that we actually discuss the issues. So if we talk about those first, just quickly decide, okay, yeah, we're going to go with topic A first, and then we'll, motion for a vote and take a vote, and then we'll move into debate on that topic. Okay, can we only speak to delegates who are friendly to our country, or can we speak to anyone during Unmoderated Caucus? You can speak to any delegate. I think, I had an experience where I was representing the United States at a conference, and the delegate of Iran refused to talk to me at all because that was the position of her country. In other committees, I have been in a committee that was a Armenian-Turkish conflict, and in the end, the Turkish delegate and the Armenian delegate both agreed that they wanted to just work together. I think in this situation, there aren't necessarily such extreme cases, but I would say that, yes, obviously you naturally gravitate towards your allies, but I think it's also important to see, which delegates you can really work with and who have similar ideas. It may not be your biggest ally traditionally. I mean, obviously those people are, in your block, but you should be able to work with delegates. There's no ban on you expanding and talking to other delegates for sure. And I think it's very good. It's a measure of a good delegate who can work with a variety of different people and with different agendas. Okay, so what is a typical number of delegates in each committee? It really varies. So, in GAs it can be 100 or more. It can be, I think, it kind of depends on the size of the conference. So, GAs are generally the biggest because those have the most delegates in the actual assembly. And a crisis committee, it can sometimes be like 4 people. So it really depends on the type of committee, and I think the ILO is kind of in the middle. So it's not going to be hundreds. It's not going to be 4. It'll be very reflective of the real size of the ILO, which is around 50, I believe. But I think the way for this conference, the unmoderated caucus will be pretty important for the GA and ECOSOC committees. And so I think that it's important to keep in mind that some of these committees will be pretty big and some of them will be a little bit smaller, but that shouldn't really deter you from your strategy. It should really be, you looking at this as an opportunity to work with other delegates and really find common ground. Okay, if we start fighting during a debate, can the chair kick us out of the conference? So the way I would really handle this is that I would, tell delegates to maintain decorum, and if this was during an unmoderated caucus, I would probably suspend the unmoderated caucus and bring everyone back in for debate, and then we may have to spend some time without going into an unmoderated caucus and focusing on the debate. I think that it's really important that delegates don't start fighting, and that if you disagree with someone, that you guys are all capable delegates, and I know that you guys are very capable of doing a great job. So I think it's really important that you make sure that you don't, just because someone disagrees, it doesn't mean that it needs to start a fight. It's actually much more productive if you use those differences to either say, okay, well, I disagree with that, so I'm going to draft something that's totally different. Or, say, okay, you have a difference from me, but how can we work together? So, what is the next question? Do all these committees meetings happen in parallel, or are they serial timeline-wise? Yes, so all the committee sessions, you can hopefully by now see the schedule for ILMUNC India on the website. If not, you'll be able to see it shortly or when you arrive, and basically you'll see blocks of time for sessions 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And so basically there'll be a block of time, and that'll be, everyone will be a committee at that time. If you're a crisis committee, if you're a GA, if you're an ECOSOC, anything. The one thing that may be slightly different is sometimes to make sure that there's not too much rush coming in and out of committees, some will be released like 5 minutes earlier or 5 minutes later, and we'll switch that around so that everyone can get around the hotel smoothly. So people are asking about the timeline. of committees, or I'm sorry, about the size of committees. So is ILO big, and what about DISEC? So yes, DISEC is one of the bigger committees because it's a big GA, and ILO is an ECOSOC, so it's going to be a little bit smaller. I don't know the exact number of delegates in each committee, but I do know that those will be bigger than crisis committee, for example. Okay. And then next question, can we get out of the session without permission? So no. We do require delegates come to every session and are present. We do take a roll call attendance at the beginning of every session, so it's very important that delegates are there. If there's an issue with that, I would encourage your faculty advisor to reach out to our Secretary General. Are there any last minute questions? I know it's getting to be about 10 a.m. Eastern time, so I think we will have to start wrapping up soon, but I'm happy to answer any more questions you guys have, and I'm hoping this will be a productive webinar for you. Going back to if we start fighting during a debate, I would say that's a situation that would be very difficult for a chair and would probably have to involve the Secretary General as well. So if that is a concern that you have, that may happen a lot in committee, that's something that, maybe you should inform your chair to just, look out for. If there seems to be a heated discussion, you see something getting a little heated, that you should let someone on the dais know. Okay, next question. What stand can less developed countries take on a topic like nuclear policy for the 21st century? Okay, well, and then it says, for example, well, here's the thing. I can't tell you what your country's position can be, but here's the thing about nuclear policy, right? If certain countries have nuclear weapons, there's ramifications for the global status quo and also for its neighboring countries. So if you know some of your neighboring countries or some countries like, nearby have nuclear weapons or nuclear energy or, there's a potential risk for your country, that may impact what you think is good nuclear policy. If you have an ally who has a lot of nuclear weapons and you feel safer because of that, then maybe you support it. And if not, if it's your enemies, then maybe you're very against it. So I think as a developing country, it's slightly different because you aren't going to have, these massive arsenals of nuclear weapons, but that doesn't mean that it's not relevant, because I think nuclear weapons are an issue for everyone in the world. When will we adjourn? So typically each session will be somewhere between 2 and 4 hours, but the conference will end on Sunday. We will have a session on Sunday, and then we'll have closing ceremony, and then that will be the end of the conference. Can we be part of other committees too, just in case? No, you are going to be assigned to one committee session, or I'm sorry, not one committee session, like one committee. So if you're in ILO, you go to all the sessions for ILO. If you're in DISEC, all the sessions for DISEC. It's not really a pick and choose thing. It's actually very important that you just stick with your topic and make sure that you are present in your committee. Okay, I have been allocated a country. Do represent that country in the debate? Yes. So the country you're assigned is the one you should research and write your position paper on, and then present that in committee, and that's your position for the entire committee. All right. Well, I think we are just about out of time, so thank you guys very much for a great session, and I'm looking forward to meeting all of you in a couple weeks. Thank you so much. Oh, really quickly, I guess, or do I represent my native country? No, you represent your country that you're assigned to. So, for example, I've represented India, I've represented Iran, I've represented the United States, I've represented China, I've grown up in the United States. So it's really a matter of just what you're assigned, and you just stick with that. And that's why it's important to do research. How will the food be? I great. I'm so excited to come and eat tons of great food. I haven't been, so I can't tell you, but I see Faraz Arif is saying the food will be awesome. So I am gonna take his word, and I'm very excited to come in and eat tons of great food. So thank